You're back in the garage with Bonesaw, and today we're looking at the German Tier 6 medium tank, the Vk36.01H. Now, as I mentioned in the other Tier 6 medium tank reviews, the Vk30 project was started by the Germans in the late 1930s to build a 30-ton breakthrough tank. The Vk36.01 came from a derivative of the Vk30.01, where they decided to mount heavier armor and larger guns. As you can see, it also uses a slightly different running gear to the 30.01H with the higher frontal drive sprocket. And this tank was the predecessor to what would become the Tiger. The 30.01 project was cancelled in the early 1940s in favour of the Vk45 project, which was to build a 45-ton breakthrough tank. And a lot of the components of this tank, the general layout, and even things like the turret style, would be reused in the Vk45 project. If you look at my Tiger, you can see the stock turret is the original turret developed by Krupp for the Tiger, and it's very, very similar to the Gross term on the 36.01H. Also, the similarities between the running gear and the road wheels. Now, in terms of gameplay, the 36.01H is, I guess you could say, the heavy medium of the German medium tanks. It has the most frontal armor at 100mm, as well as the most side armor at 80 and 60 on the turret. 80mm side hull, 80 on the rear as well. That makes this tank very durable in comparison to the 30.01H and the 30.01P, but it also means it is by and large the slowest. It's not slow, but it does not accelerate as quickly as the 30.01P, and it does not have as much of a top speed as the 30.01H. It is, however, much more durable due to that heavy armor, and also has, I believe, the highest health out of any of them. Now, in choice of armaments, this tank has a very interesting selection. You start off with a different turret. You start off with the standard term, and I'll just mount the standard term to show you. This makes the tank substantially lighter, and the standard term also rotates much faster. And in choice of guns on the standard term, you have what's mounted there, the semi-unique Konish 75mm gun. Originally, this tank was the only tank that had access to the Konish gun. However, it's now available on the German Tier 7 scout tank, the Aufklärungspanzer. Now, the Konish is a very effective gun with 165 average damage, 157mm of penetration, and 11.76 rounds per minute. Previously, it didn't see much action, however, because prior to the new German medium line being introduced and the Konish being added to the Aufklärungspanzer, the Konish only did about 65 damage per shot, because its unique feature was that with premium rounds, it did more damage than standard armor penetration rounds. It was the only gun in the game to have increased damage with premium rounds. So essentially, that gun existed to sell premium rounds, but now that they've added it onto the Aufklärungspanzer, they decided to buff the damage as well, so it now does 165 damage per shot, and you see a lot more of it in action. It also has access to the 7.5cm L48 gun. Great gun at Tier 5, useless at Tier 6. It really is not very effective and not a viable choice for the 36.01H. The 105mm L28, once again, not that effective at Tier 6. You can make do with it when you're grinding early on to unlock some of the other guns, but as soon as you get the Konish, that's going to be the gun you want to mount, and plenty of people use it as their preferred gun throughout their duration of driving this tank, including Fegelein. He prefers the Konish. You also have choice of using the L70 once you unlock it. It also requires the larger turret, the Gross term. The Gross term gives you increased armor to a minor extent, with this gun mantlet being much more durable. It also gives you increased hit points and allows you to mount the L70, which gives you 150mm of penetration and 135 average damage. That is less penetration and less damage than the Konish, however it does have a slightly higher rate of fire. accuracies are roughly comparable with 0.35 and 0.34. The final gun that you can mount is the 88mm L56. Now, the 88 is my personal preferred gun. I just find that the higher damage output is very useful at tier 6, and with the durability of this tank you can really make use of it in close quarters brawling. However, that is a matter of choice. The only real consideration that needs to be taken into account when you mount this gun and the gross term is that the gross term does not traverse very quickly, and neither does this tank. So enemy circling you can be a major issue, and you know, moving your gun around to engage moving targets or targets that have, you know, come into your field of view in a unexpected location can take time. This tank will feel rather sluggish until you get the top engine. However, the top Maybach engine means this tank does become very mobile and more than capable of getting around the battlefield. This tank does teach you some very important skills when it comes to driving the Tiger. To make the most of that 100mm of armor, you will need to angle yourself and try and conceal your lower plate. Your lower plate is a vulnerability on this tank. It is still 100mm thick, however, as with most German tanks, it does have a front-mounted transition, and getting shot through the frontal lower plate can result in a fire, which can do substantial damage to your tank. Overall, this tank is a very, very effective and durable brawling tank. It can also be rather effective at medium ranges. It will teach you many skills that you need in the Tiger, and overall is a very popular and effective tier 6 medium tank. Alright, this time around we're on Himmelsdorf. It's a standard battle. Fagline and myself are both in our Vk36.01Hs, and we've decided we're going to move to the hill. Generally, we don't want to be getting into even though the Vk36.01H is well armoured for a tier 6 German medium, we don't want to be getting into a slugging match along the 8 line, because the enemy team have quite a few things that can penetrate our 100mm of armour. But overall, pretty standard tier 6 matching. We've got a KV-1S and a T-28 heading hill as well. Fagline will be appearing behind me shortly. As usual in this game, I'm mounting the 88mm L56 in the gross term turret. Fagline is instead using the standard turret, standard term, and he's mounting the 75mm Kernish gun. The Kernish used to be a very interesting gun. It used to be unique to the Vk36.01H until the previous patch, patch 8.5, in which it was also given to the Aufklärungspanzerpanther, the Scout Panther, and in addition it was buffed. The Kernish gun used to be unique in that it was the only gun where it actually dealt more damage with premium ammunition in addition to having increased penetration. Alright, we've spotted some things around the corner. And the T-28 is not sitting in a very good position. As you can see, he's taking a lot of damage, as is our KV-1S. We've got a ARL-44, a Jumbo Sherman, an E2 Jumbo Sherman, a Jagdpanzer 4, and a Churchill 1 coming up behind. Thankfully, the T-28 has given me a nice bit of cover to use. Now, the ARL-44 is giving our KV-1S a bit of trouble, and our KV-1S doesn't really know how to deal with it. Having driven the ARL, I know that the correct strategy here is to shoot it in the turret, which I'll mention in a minute in the chat to him. Unfortunately, he doesn't follow my advice. The KV-1S isn't actually a very durable tank. It's very much a glass cannon. As you can see, I've taken no damage. Both myself and Fagline have already scored 1 kill. So I take the track off the ARL and distract him, so Fagline can put a shot in his turret. Now he switches to Fagline, I roll forward, another one in the turret. That's really what we've got to do. And this is some great team play here by us. This is really how you're supposed to play medium tanks, just distract the enemy, put some shots into them. See, they're all going after me at the moment, but I'll just shoot that Jumbo, get him to back off. take a hit in the tracks there. The Churchill's another tank really where you got to go for the turret. It's the softest part of the tank. 172mm hull, but only an 80mm turret, which my L56 can easily cut through. Alrighty. That ARL is probably the biggest problem because he is mounting the DCA 45 gun, which has a phenomenal 222mm of pen. Alrighty. Now the ARL is the only one left, so we're just going to swing around and bum rush him. But unfortunately, we've already got someone on the cap, which is a problem. Alright, so he's following Fagerline, and I'll finish him off with a shot to the turret. Now Fagerline's on the more health, so I'm telling him to head for the enemy cap while I return to our cap. Unfortunately, the enemy have managed to get quite a few tanks through us on the 8 line, and unfortunately no one on our team is reacting to this problem. They've just destroyed the KV-1S, and that medium down there could easily turn around and return to cap, but unfortunately he's not. Neither is our heavy, and I'm currently pinging our cap, but no one's moving to engage. Hetzer bounces off me. Looked like he was using an AP round in the 105, which is a bit strange. But unfortunately that's game for us. Alrighty. So this time we're on Malinovka, and it's an encounter battle. Same loadout as previously. Fagerline is using the not the L70, the 75mm Kernish gun. I'm using the L56 88mm gun. So we've got a fair number of tanks, heavy tanks capable of moving on that hill, so we're deciding to go down and cover the cap instead. The gun depression on this tank isn't really favourable to hill fighting, so we'll let our KVs and our KV-1S deal with that instead. Encounter battles on this map generally can swing very quickly. Sometimes one team will have a very definitive advantage and then lose it very suddenly, as you'll see in this game. And it does seem to be the trend in this tank when both myself and Fagerline are driving it. We tend to have some very good games, but we still wind up losing them. So no contact's been made down here, but our M18 Hellcat is moving along the flank there. We've already lost an ELC AMX, which is something of a loss, but he obviously got some vision on that hill, which is helpful. We still have one ELC remaining. Alright, we're moving around to help that Hellcat. Now sometimes this sort of outflanking maneuver this early in the game can be a bad idea, because often you'll find the enemy will be garrisoned all along the E and E, D and F lines around that hill sector over there, and crossing this field as in a normal game can be an absolute death trap. Thankfully the enemy have congregated largely on the hill and around the C4 and 5 sectors, trying to cover the cap. So this gives us an a good opportunity to cross the field and engage. As you can see on the 36.01H, it does get quite an amount of speed up on flat ground, despite its heavy weight. It is still the slowest of the four Tier 6 mediums. I have yet to play the Vk36.01D, but it is still the slowest, not by much. Alright, firing off some shots at a E8 Sherman. Unfortunately the first one missed, the second one does not. It's probably a solid hit, trying to get some shots on this Jagdpanzer IV. Now chances of these hitting are low, but once again it's a case of any hit is a good hit. And he is only using the L70 gun, so he won't be doing tremendous amounts of damage. Finish him off, third shot. Alright, moving across on the low ground with Fagerline. It's good to try and stay in cover as much as possible. Even with 100mm of armor on your front plate, there are still plenty of tanks out here that can penetrate us. Enemy 36.01H killed our Hellcat. Trying to put another shot into that Sherman. Unfortunately, I leaded a little bit too much and missed the shot. Fegelein takes out the Sturmpanzer II. And you can see the rate of fire on that Kernish gun, very useful for engaging enemy tanks. Unfortunately, I bounced on the angled plate of that 36.01H and decided to go after the Su-26. So I execute him with a single shot to remove any artillery hazard. And resume fire on the 36.01H. As you can see, with an angled front plate, it is a very resilient tank, but Fegelein finishes him off with some accurate shots from his 75mm gun. Alright, here I come to finish off the Sherman. Unfortunately, our KV-1 gets him first. Alright, I'm taking some hits from up on the hill. More than likely it's from the Panzer IV. At least that's what I'm thinking at the moment. However, it probably is actually that 3001P, because I do kill the Panzer IV later, and it is equipped with a derp gun, the 105mm. Alrighty. So we've got something out on the field there. Take a blind shot at it. And I've decided, better than go up the hill and hunt for artillery, it's best to head towards the cap. Alright, our Churchill 7's just been killed by their KV-1S. And now it turns out the 3001P is out in the field. So, put some shots into him. Fegelein tracks him, and I will finish him off. Oh, no, turns out Fegelein gets that one. Alrighty. Now someone's obviously capturing the base from the slope, and I've got things shooting at me. It's more than likely that Hellcat and the Jagdpanzer IV, they're up on the ridge line behind me, but thankfully I'm not overly worried by them at the moment. I'm on largely about 80% health, so I can afford to take a few more hits. I really need to stop them from capping. Turns out to be a Panzer IV, so I roll up and execute him. Unfortunately, I lose my track to that Hellcat, but I get to finish him off. And there's a Jagdpanzer IV behind me. The real problem is that KV-1S. He's just lurking around the backfield and executing all of our tanks. The Jagdpanzer IV has shown itself. Bring my front plate around him and angle it. I missed that shot and get taken out by the KV-1S. That was a very, very lucky shot by him. He hit me clean in the back of the turret, and from that range and on the move, chances were kind of low. And unfortunately, he takes out Fegelein as well. So here we are on Sacred Valley in the German Tier 6 medium Vk36.01H. And normally I don't like this map at the best of times. Granted, I haven't played too many games on it, so I'm not entirely sure of all the hidey holes and ins and outs of it yet, but just in general it is a very rough map, lots of hills and bumps, which isn't very good for German tanks, as they by and large don't have very good gun depression. There are a couple of exceptions to this. The Dicamax and the Daimler line of medium tanks tend to have better gun depression than most German tanks. However, even a small bump in the 36.01H can cause you serious problems. So I'm just rushing up the hill here, trying to get to cover as fast as possible. Spot a light tank and take a shot to the tracks. Thankfully no damage resolves from that. So I'll move into position behind this rock here, just exposing my turret. Finish off the Type 58. I'm still worried about that light tank, because he is lighting us up, and I want to be able to see and engage him to prevent any further spotting. However, I've got a shot on a Hellcat. Unfortunately that dings, which somewhat bizarre considering the Hellcat only has about 18mm of armor, but such is the vagaries of the ricochet system in World of Tanks. Alright, now I don't particularly want to move away from my rock at the moment, because if there's a light tank there and a Hellcat, I could have a very, very bad day. The Vk36.01H is quite well armoured, however a Hellcat with a 90mm gun can still do considerable damage to me, especially if he is concealed in some bushes and I have no capacity to see him. And it turns out that staying here is in fact quite fortuitous for both me and my teammates. So I can see we've got an ELC AMX sneaking up here, and he's going to try and attack our AT-8 from behind. So thankfully I'm on hand to save our AT-8. Fortunately we've just lost one of our KV-1S's, which is something of a concern. Thankfully it's on the other flank, so it's still holding strong. Alrighty, we've lost our tank destroyer up here, so I'm just going to move up to support our T-29. We don't want him to get overwhelmed, otherwise this flank will likely collapse. And the T-25/2 on the enemy team is complaining about bouncing off of a T-29. No surprises there. Got a bad angle, it will not penetrate, especially seeing as they've just reduced the normalization on ricochets. Penetration does not affect normalization, so even if you have 1000mm of hypothetical penetration, you will not penetrate your enemy if you have a bad angle. Alright, so we're just sneaking up on this Hellcat here. Unfortunately, I learned something about these buildings, is that their roofs make your gun want to raise up, which is a problem, and I will need to aim in. He didn't do very much damage there. He might be firing HE, but either way, I will kill him. He is a Hellcat, and he will die. Alright, so I know there's a T-25-2 up here, so I'm going to circle around behind the large temple, and that way we can execute a pincer maneuver on him. Fortunately for me, he's right behind this wall. So as he's going after our T-29, I can sneak around and just put one through his rear plate. So that's fourth kill for the game so far, and a very good outcome for heavy tank and a medium tank holding a flank on our own. And the enemy team are raging. So now we're just going to maneuver down towards the cap. They still have a French auto-loading heavy tank remaining, which is something of concern. I'm going to try and see if I can get some shots across the valley. They also have a KV-1S, a British tank destroyer, I believe it's an AT-8, and a AMX 1375. So there is still a considerable amount of firepower on the enemy team. A substantial amount of burst damage in the form of those French auto-loading tanks. So just taking up an overwatch position here to cover our mediums and our T-29 as they head towards the enemy cap. I've deemed it safe, so I'm going to follow up on the approach as well. We've spotted the enemy tank destroyer. He's going to try and go hull down, or as hull down as a tank destroyer can get without a turret, behind a pile of rubble there. And I noticed the 1375. So I'm trying to make sure that he doesn't get too many shots into my flank, because he can kill me with a full magazine with his very effective 75mm gun. Unfortunately I bounce off of the enemy tank destroyer, but he's tracked, so I'm going to try and use him as cover against the 1375. Bounce off his rear plate and decide the 1375 is a more important kill. Unfortunately he's already dead, so I'll put one into the KV-1S to back up our 3001P. Another shot through his front plate, and the 3001P will finish him off, bouncing the round from the mantlet of the 3001P. So that's a good game in the 3601H.